Hey guys, Seedoeatreview. Welcome, Beth, to Seedoeatreview
Hello.
for your Adelaide Fringe show. The problem of having Beth is how to pronounce this show. I've never had so much trouble trying to pronounce it, or when I'm putting it in my Google, which way the letters go. Can you let the audience know what is it called and
Absolutely.
who is it called?
Go ahead.
Yeah, for it.
Excellent. So the show is named after my grandmother, whose name is Nusha.
I was calling it Niusia. Anyway,
Niusia.
Niusia.
We've had Niusia, Niusia, all variations on it, but her name is Nusha. So phonetically it'd be like,
Nationality?
pardon?
What nationality is that?
It's short for Heniusha, which is Polish,
Yes.
and the rough transliteration is Henrietta.
Oh, there we go. Fantastic. My grandparents are a Ukrainian background, so it's similar but
Yeah.
different. So go ahead, tell everyone what the show is about.
Oh my goodness, excellent. So the show is called Nusha. Like I said, that's my grandmother's name. And it is a show about me, my mum, and my grandmother. It's about three generations of women, three generations of Jewish women. And it's all about how my grandmother was an absolutely remarkable woman. She was a Holocaust survivor. She saved people's lives in the camp. She was in Auschwitz. She was an iridescent entertainer. God, she was charming. She was clever. She was quick. And I remember her as a massive bitch. So it's looking at how both of those things can be true.
Mm.
It's a verbatim piece of work. So I've interviewed my mother. So on stage, it's me as my grandmother in post-war Melbourne, and interview of my beautiful mother, Susie. So you get quite a clear illustration of these three women, and it dives into her memories, her memory, her legacy, and starts to unpack who the hell this woman was, and how she lives in my memory and my mother's memory and the pretty remarkable stories from her time in World War II.
So
And
it's a
asks,
one-woman show?
yes, it's a
Yes.
one-woman show, it's autobiographical, and it's
Mm-hmm.
verbatim.
Mm-hmm.
And it's looking at how on earth second, third, fourth generation Australians handle the history of their forebearers and goes, how on earth can we commemorate or remember someone that we barely remember? And
That's what I was going to
what is
say. You would have known her before the war. Do you know how much that changed her at all? Or did it
great
change her?
question. She was in Auschwitz for between 5 or 6 years, so she was there for a while.
Jeez, yes.
And she would have been about 16 or 17 when she was interned in camp there. So it would have had a pretty significant impact on her.
Mm.
Um,
Did she find her way to
but in terms of
Australia?
how that, yes,
Okay.
she arrived in Australia in 49.
Okay. Because my
In
grandparents
49.
come from Ukraine via Italy. Did she come the same way, or did she just find her way down here as well? Yeah.
Yeah, she by Italy as well. My
Oh.
mother and my aunt were born in Milano
Mm-hmm.
in 47 as
Mm-hmm.
refugees, and then they came to Australia.
Ah, there you go. Through Melbourne. I say
So
that because
similar
it's very
story.
similar without being similar, of
Yeah.
course. So
Well,
you go for
of course.
it.
So arrived in Sydney, then came down to Melbourne and settled
Mm.
in Carlton.
Oh, really? Fantastic. She picked a good suburb as well. So how was she with you? Did she talk about Auschwitz with you, or did she just keep that to herself?
Very much kept it to herself. So she was 72 years of age when I was born, and the war had not been kind to her. So I never got to know her particularly well. She
Mm-hmm.
died when I was 13, which is old enough to think that I knew who she was and young enough to not know anything.
Mm-hmm.
So her time in the war really comes to me in um, overheard conversations, smattering. There's a memory I have being very, very, very young and looking at my grandmother and wondering, why on earth would anybody go to a camp to concentrate?
Okay.
Because I knew that's where she'd been, but I didn't know what that meant. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew it had to do with rocks somehow, but that was it. But I probably would have been about 6 or 7. So it has always lived in that collective memory. Um, but it was never something that was told directly to me. I was never sat down and shared and had this information shared with me. It was sort of picked up through osmosis. And she never spoke to me about it directly, but to my mother and to my cousins. And it was given to me in things such as oh, we don't talk about Poland. Poland's a graveyard. And as being 10 or 11, you're like, I don't, okay. Look back and reinterrogate those moments and go, oh, yes.
Mm, mm. So how did your mum
So it's not
feel
something she
about
ever
all
talked about.
this? How did your mum feel about it
I'm
all?
incredibly lucky. My mother's a remarkable woman. She has been so open and so sharing, and has given me an absolute gift in participating in the creation of the show. She feels at once very privileged to be a part of it and to have this story shared so widely, but also knows how exposing it is.
Mm,
But she has been so open, and every other day I come to her and I'm like, Mum, what was Nana like in this moment? Or what was she like when she did
mm,
that? Or what was she like as a mother?
mm-hmm.
And at every turn, she has um, been open and shared with me,
That's
which is
fantastic.
what led us to taking the interview. So she's a very, very big part of the show in that way. You'll hear my
Yes.
mother talk quite a bit about how she learnt that her mother and father went through the Holocaust and how that lived in their family narrative, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak.
How many times have you done this show before?
We had a development season at the remarkable La Mama Theatre in Carlton,
Mm-hmm.
which was pretty special being able to do that in Carlton,
Prevalent
given
now.
one of the primary locations of the work. Followed up by a premiere at the Motley Bauhaus, also in Carlton in Fringe. And then we've had two development workshops since then. So
Mm-hmm.
in full, we've done two seasons of the show with a couple of developments.
Mm.
And so this will be the next big season of Niusia. And after we return from Adelaide, we're going on a Victorian tour because we've been lucky enough to be chosen to be part of the VCE playlist. So Year 12 students will be writing on the work for their drama exams, which is
I
pretty
was going to
remarkable.
say it'd cover all age categories, wouldn't it? It would be the older generation who lived through it. It'll be the younger generation who are learning about it. What have you found the audience reception and age groups for it?
It's been pretty remarkable. We've had young people come up to me after the show sharing stories about their grandparents and telling me that they've since connected with their grandparents to ask about their stories. We've had middle-aged women and men come up to me and realize that they are the kin keepers of their family histories and realize, oh, I'm the only person who knows this stuff now.
Mm.
My kids need to learn this, or I need to learn more before my parents go, or my kids need to know what my story is. We've also had much older people come and see the show in Marvel, thinking about their grandparents and how they're sort of the older generation now, but they remember their grandparents who lived through the Boer War and all sorts of major historical events that have lasting impacts on people today, but they don't live so fresh in our minds. Um,
Yeah, I'm not sure
so
it's
it,
the European aspect of it, but I know with my Ukrainian parents, with the Russians invading them, they kept it to
mm,
themselves. But if you did ask questions, they would talk about it, but they were very private about it. And I'm not
very
sure it's a European thing or just in general.
It's a great question. I often, that's another response I have for the show is people come up to me and they share stories of their their parents growing up in South African apartheid or in Ireland between the Protestants and the Catholics, or their Italian or Polish or um, German grandparents through World War II and how there are so often these stories that live in isolation. So when asked, they'll be like, "Oh, this is what the war was like," and you'll get these quite neat packaged stories that kind of get handed to you, but never strays
Mm-mm.
beyond that script. And they will very rarely offer that information freely. Uh,
Much
but
like
that's
your,
been a
much like yourself,
experience.
it wasn't till my brothers and I were in high school we had to do research your grandparents' history or research something or rather in
Mm,
regards to that, history related. Then we'd sit down with the grandparents and you go, they've lived through all this and I knew nothing about it. And some of it is because
exactly.
you're young, but some of it is like, oh my God, it's all been about me. I don't ask them about them as well. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that's a really key part of the show is that we start the show with this concept that's like, oh, my grandma was a bitch, whatever. but I go deeper and deeper and deeper, and it kind of goes from who the hell I thought my grandmother was to, oh no, who the hell am I,
Mm.
to wider context. And that has
Hmm.
been such a beautiful process if the show is talking to audience members after the show and seeing them and where they're at in that journey for themselves, whether they're just beginning to be like, wait, my grandparents, they saw stuff,
Mm.
or they're a bit deeper in that history, or they're understanding sort of the world in which in their context, so to
Hmm.
speak. So it's 100% that,
Mm.
100% that, Shane.
Where is it? What's the times? Where can people find you?
Absolutely. So it's called Niusia, Niusia. We're going to be at the beautiful Goodwood Studios from, I have it
Oh,
up
there's a lot
here,
of dates.
from the 25th to the 9th, 25th of February to the 9th of February. We're going to be at Goodwood. It's a beautiful theatre. We're also going to be presenting workshops and Q&As because we have some school tickets available as
Oh,
well, if that
fantastic.
is of interest.
Hmm.
It's going to be sensational. I'm so excited. The Goodwood is such a beautiful theatre. I can't wait to hang out with audience members afterwards and talk to me about their experiences.
Before I
Uh,
go, it's such a
yes,
heavy topic. Do you feel exhausted after the performance, or do you feel
but here's the
exhilarated?
thing. It is a heavy topic, but the show is filled with humor.
Hmm.
Audience members often leave feeling uplifted and full of hope and joy. It's heavy, but it's a celebration of life and of family and of connecting to where you
Hmm.
come from.
Mm.
So we've made quite a conscious effort to guide audience members through the heavy stuff, but have them laughing just thereafter. Jewish gallows humor is such a big part of this
Mm.
show, so it's heavy and it is a roller coaster, but it is such a privilege to perform this story, and for people to be open and to be a part of the creation of this work. So it is heavy, and I do feel tired afterwards, but
You must
because
be,
it's
but
magic,
you're in
not
awe of your
because.
grandma, I'm guessing. You'd be in
Oh
awe.
yeah,
Just, and as I said, she went through different stuff that any other of my grandparents went through, but all you think about is how they come through it and how they were such a positive light in your life. You know what I
such
mean?
a positive light. Like
Mm.
I have such respect for my grandmother because she had everything taken away from her. Dignity, like my God, what she went through. But she came to Melbourne and she made one hell of a life. Like she did
Mm.
not let that stop her. She came and
Mm.
she was a businesswoman. God, she could throw a party. She was
Hmm.
just a ray of light. Pretty crazy one, but a ray of light,
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
that's
So
good. So I'll see you in Adelaide when you come down here, guys. I'll put all the notes and all the times and the dates and the place in my notes if you didn't pick it up. Beth, thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to seeing you when you're down here.
Jane, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming to this interview, and I'll see you at the show. I can't
No, thank you
wait.
so much, buddy. Cheers.
Bye.